Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video here at the Armory. So today is going to be kind of a little bit of a different day. Today what we're going to do is we're going to start focusing more on God and my Christian beliefs and all of those kinds of things. Because I know how I talk about being a Christian on here. Well, now I'm going to really start to fill in some of the gaps in the videos when I'm trying to figure out what to do with firearms, or trying to see what you guys want me to do the next review on, or trying to schedule dates to meet up with a handful of people to be able to talk about things, or et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that go into doing these things. But just to kind of fill in the gap, I'm going to start talking about more things when it comes to Christianity. I'm not going to make this a 100% Christian channel, but I guess it is. It is a Christian-based channel, but I'm not deviating from firearms to now go to just talking about things that are in the Bible. I'm going to do both here on the Armory, and hopefully when we start launching the podcast, we can start doing a whole bunch more things as time goes on. But today, I just thought the subject should be this. I thought the subject should be a lot of people, and rightly so in many circumstances, have always kind of gotten this idea that Christians are supposed to be meek. Christians are supposed to be quiet. Christians are supposed to be very non-evasive, like we are supposed to be, and even the Bible says this, we are separate from the world, but we are not taken out of the world. Even Jesus prays this to God, that you separate them from the world, but do not take them out of the world, because we need to be in the world. We're not of the world, but we are in the world, so that we can lead more people to Christ. So a lot of people have kind of gotten this idea of, how can you be a Christian and, support the Second Amendment, for example? Or how can you be a Christian and just think that there's nothing wrong with firearms? They lead to so many people dying, and they're used in, many different ways of just illegal, immoral, unethical. So I just thought that we would go ahead and apply the idea of firearms to what Christianity is supposed to be. Okay? So right here I've got my study Bible with me, just so everyone can see real quick. This is my study Bible. This is the New King James Version. And just so everyone is aware, the only thing different from the New King James Version versus the King James Version is that they just replace the these, thys, and thous, ye's, and yays to modern day language. So, when it says in the Old King James Version, thou shalt not commit adultery, it's saying you shall not commit adultery in that, for this translation, for the New King James. Just want to get that out there for you guys. So the whole idea is, how can you justify having firearms being a Christian? Because doesn't Jesus say turn the other cheek? We're going to get to that. We will get to that part, believe me, on the Sermon on the Mount. But for right now, we're going to talk about how do firearms fit with Christian belief systems. So I'm going to read you a couple verses, then I'm going to read the study Bible explanation on the bottom, and then I'm going to give you modern day context for it, okay? And I'm going to give you context for what it was, all the way back then to how it translates to today. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is Exodus 22, chapter 22. And this is where it sets up the premise of self-defense. So when it comes to burglary kind of thing. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to read this in full context. Okay, so chapter 22, the name of the chapter in the book right here, I'll even hold it up for you, right there, says responsibility for property. So this is where Moses is laying out everyone has responsibility for their own things. So I'm just wanting to make that context clearly known. So here we go. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. So now we're going to take a look at what the context says in the study Bible section. So let me just find that real quick. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Just as stealing a horse in the days of American frontier was sometimes punishable by hanging. So right there's the context. Back in the old American West, stealing a horse, even stealing cattle back then, was a hanging offense, meaning you will be put to death for doing something like this. Because of the great loss suffered by the person affected by that theft, so the stealing of an ox or a sheep carried heavy penalties. Okay? The restitution was usually greater than the value of the stolen animal. So, and then it goes forward here to say, the sun has risen on him. To strike the thief after the act would be considered inappropriate use of force. The thief who could not offer restitution was to be sold into slavery. So, pretty much what the context of this whole entire passage of what I've just read to you is that God is in favor of people having their own personal property. If you have money, if you have worked for it, and you've bought it, whatever it is your personal property. And that is why there's even, if you think about it, there's 2 commandments in the Bible. There's 2 commandments in the 10 commandments. It is thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet what is thy neighbor's. So right in that context right there of Exodus, is that what Moses is trying to tell the Israelites is that if a thief is found breaking into your home at night and you kill him, then you will not be held accountable for what you have done. Because in Moses' time, back in 2,000 years ago, if someone broke into your tent, if someone broke into your actual stone home, and there was no candles or anything being lit, people have, translated it to be this, is that you don't know what's going on. So you can't see anything or anything like that. But if a man is found breaking into your house and you strike him down that he dies, you will not be held guilty for that. But if the sun rises on the thief, so necessarily, I think what a lot of people kind of have like a different idea about this is that if a thief is breaking into your house in the daytime, then if you strike him, you will be held guilty for that. I don't think that is what this is saying, because again, personal property, even by what the Bible says, does not end just because it's daylight. What it is giving a command, it says right here, the sun has risen on him. To strike the thief after the act would be, and it says right there, after the act, would be considered an appropriate use of force. So what it is saying is that sounds more like you have found the thief and you know who he is and you are taking vengeance on him. That is inappropriate. So that's kind of when you that's kind of what the context of here is talking about, is that, okay, the thief has broken in, he has stolen your stuff, and he's gotten away. And it's daytime, and you know who stole it. That's when, in our modern day society, that's when, first off, we would have called the cops, and then they would have tracked him down, found him, arrested him, returned our property to us. And then he would be serving his jail time. Now, obviously, right here in Exodus, it says the thief who could not offer restitution was to be sold into slavery. So when they say sold into slavery, they don't mean like, oh, here comes the caravan and we sell him into it. Not necessarily. It was meant to be, it was indentured servitude, which means that the person who stole from the person, if he couldn't offer restitution, if he couldn't replace what he had taken, he was to be sold into slavery to the person he wronged. And there were bylaws to this, meaning that at a certain time, you had to set him free. It was a way of working off your debt of what you owed to the man or what you owed to society. Slavery was a common thing back then, but it was not race-baited. It was not race-based. It was not race-based slavery. It was because it was called indentured servitude to work off your debt. So there's the first sign that God is not against self-defense or is against you owning personal property. And now we're going to move on to what I think is another good passage for self-defense, because in this context, we're going to look at, as soon as I can get to it, there we go. We're going to look at Nehemiah. So Nehemiah is a man who has been away from Jerusalem for so long. Obviously, I have read the story, but it's been way too long ago. But he finds favor with the king, not the king of Judea. It's another king. And let's see. Okay. From what I'm gathering right here, timeline for Nehemiah. So 586 BC, the Babylonians take Judah captive. And then it works its way down to 444 BC. Nehemiah leads a group of returnees, and Jerusalem's wall is reconstructed the next year. So I guess I would have to read more into it, but we're going to just focus on the Bible verse itself of what I'm wanting to talk to you guys about, because I don't want to get the story wrong or anything. So let's just get to the Bible verse of what the topic is that we're trying to discuss. So, Book of Nehemiah, chapter 4, verse 14. But chapter 4, the title of it right here is called The Wall Defended Against Enemies. So at this time, Jerusalem had been fallen, was destroyed. The walls around Jerusalem completely destroyed. What Nehemiah is trying to do is rebuild the walls of Jerusalem so that they are completely protected from, just like, for example, thievery or spies breaking in or anything like that. When you have a wall built around your city and there's only one way in and one way out, that really limits the chances of anything happening in those kinds of means. So, now we're going to take a look at Nehemiah chapter 14, or chapter 4, verse 14. My bad, chapter 4, verse 14. So, right here, where is it? I know I'm right on it. Okay. So we'll read 13 and we'll go from there. Therefore, I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, your houses. So, just to give you the context of what is going on here, all the people who are there working on the wall, as it says in the story, let's go ahead and really quickly, I forgot, let's read the Bible study chapter. So, nobles, leaders, rest of the people, Nehemiah's strategy was to address both leaders and lay people, which means labor people. In this way, all of the community would have ownership of the same ideals. Fight for your brethren. Nehemiah reminded the Jewish people that they were not mercenaries, soldiers earning a salary or hoping for loot. Not only were their own lives at stake, but so were the lives of their loved ones. So what Nehemiah is telling the people of Jerusalem that are building the walls of Jerusalem, they are sitting there building this wall brick by brick, stone by stone, mortar by mortar. They're doing this all with a hammer in one hand. This is just an expression. They had a hammer in one hand and a sword in another. So they were ready for battle if the enemy ever came and attacked them. So again, this is another verse for self-defense. So the context is supposed to be that in that time, when Nehemiah came back and was starting to build the walls of Jerusalem, what they were trying to accomplish was to make Jerusalem safe again. So what is pretty much happening here is that Nehemiah is getting all the men involved, whether they're noblemen, whether they're leaders, whether they are just, very low people in society there. He's getting everyone up there. And even the younger boys are doing this kind of stuff, helping out in constructing this wall, but every single one of them was armed with their hammer and their sword and their spears and their bows. They were ready to fight if it came down to it. And guess what? God did not say that is the wrong way to do it. No, God actually blessed them in creating the walls again. So we're going to move on from here. This is kind of just like a little, just kind of another way of looking at this is, a lot of people think that, again, Christians are supposed to be meek. We're supposed to be, very, quiet, very, just very, very non-intrusive people. But this is not what David says in Psalms. So what David says here in Psalm 144, a psalm of David, blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. We all have to remember that King David was not only the king of, Jerusalem, he was also a warrior. And God blessed him. God knew what he was going to become. And we have to understand that God is never against bloodshed or self-defense, especially when it serves a higher purpose of what his will is to be. Just like, for example, when God sent the children of Israel into the land of Canaan to move them out so that they could take the land, God used Israel to judge the Canaanites because the Canaanites were doing massive amounts of evil in the sight of God because they were sacrificing their children on the molten god Molech, and they were doing this for over 400 years. And they were doing this again and again and again, and God said to them many times, through creation, through their conscience, and through their heart, he was saying, stop doing this. It's evil. It's wrong. Stop it. But they didn't listen. So then what happened? God said, Jerusalem, go in there, make war with these people, and I will deliver them all into your hands. And now a lot of people will say, well, isn't that immoral that God said, kill everyone in Canaan, kill all the men, women, and children? Well, first off, in the Bible, it's written from, a viewer's perspective of what was going on at the time, and there's also hyperbole used in the Bible. So, one of the biggest things that we have to understand is that just because it says that they murdered all the men, women, and children there, they annihilated the entire nation, it doesn't mean that they completely killed them. Because if you read a few verses later, it says, and do not intermarry with them. How can you intermarry with a race if there's none alive? It's hyperbole language. So now we've looked at 3 examples in the Old Testament. So now, as Christians, we live under the New Testament of the New Covenant. So is there anything about what God or Jesus might say about self-defense in the New Testament? Absolutely, he does. And now the most famous passage that a lot of people will always go to is, of course, in the book of Luke. It's in Luke 22, 35 to 38. But I actually want to provide a little bit more context for what is being done here. So, we're going to take a look at Matthew 5. Okay. We're going to take a look at Matthew 5, and it's going to be verse 39. So, the next page, actually. Verse 39. So, verse 39 says, but I tell you not to resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. So, in this context, this is where people kind of give you 2 roads of approach right here, where it says turn the other cheek. We're addressing turn the other cheek right here. What the definition of turn the other cheek meant back then, it was an insult. So back then, people did not say, in the modern day language, when people say F you to you, or say, go to hell, or, you suck, get out of my face, you piece of crap, or anything like that. Those are insults. Back then, turning the other cheek, being slapped across the face was an insult. No one used verbal insults. They literally just came up and slapped you in the face, and that was just to be offered as an insult. So what Jesus is trying to say here, what turning the other cheek meant, was that, look, if you're going to insult me, do you want to insult me again? Do you want to slap me on the other side of the face? That is what he is saying to do. It has nothing to do with, you just need to accept bodily harm that's going to happen to you. That's not what is going on here. Now, there's also another way that you can look at it. So I just provided the road right there of meaning that slap in the face meant an insult. So that's the one road of, how you need to view it. Both these roads that I'm going to present to you are correct, no matter what. What it also means is that you need to pick, this is the other road, you need to pick and choose your battles. Are you really wanting to fight someone just because they insulted you? I mean, really. If it was just an insult, if someone literally looked at you and insulted you, do you really want to throw fisticuffs up over something like that? No. I don't feel like that is something that is worth it. And especially that's what even Jesus says. Turn the other cheek. Just don't let the insult become a reason to fight somebody over. Because in this case, words will only affect you if you allow them to. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to read the Bible study portion real quick. So right here. Yep, right here. The Lord seems to be speaking in hyperbolic terms to teach the lesson of non-retaliation. Generally, he commands us to have a generous and compassionate attitude towards the needy. He makes this application in 4 areas: physical attacks, legal suits, government demands, and financial requests. Because it goes on for a little bit more if, going the extra mile. So, that was the government demands. So the Romans could demand that any citizen could carry their equipment for 1 mile. But then Jesus said, go the extra mile. If they said, you know, walk, if it's required for you to walk a mile with them, walk 2. So, and then it's also financial requests is in there. We're supposed to have a generous and compassionate heart to people. Now, sometimes, we are still called to be this. And a lot of times it is very, very difficult, especially in today's world. But we are still called to be that no matter what. So that is where it becomes very, very hard to. But I wanted to address that real quick. Now, obviously, we're going to go forward into Luke, and we're going to talk about the most classic example of what Jesus says about self-defense. So it is Luke chapter 22. Just let me get there real quick. Luke chapter 22, verse 35 to 38. So here we go. And the title for this is Supplies for the Road. And he said to them, when I sent you without money, bag, knapsack, or sandals, did you lack anything? And they said, nothing. Then he said to them, but now whoever has a money bag, let him take it, and likewise his knapsack. And he who hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you, that this which is written must still be accomplished in me. And he said, and he was numbered with the transgressors. For the things concerning me have an end. And then it goes on right here to say, so they said, look, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he said to him, it is enough. So we'll go ahead and we'll read the Bible passage right here. When I sent you, the allusion here is to the disciples' mission recorded in 9:1 through 6:10, and then chapter 10, verse 1 to 24. When the disciples had depended on God to provide for their needs, those needs were met through generous people. However, the situation has changed. Jesus has instructed his disciples to take a money bag, a knapsack, and a sword on their journeys in order to prepare for the rejection that was to come. Now, obviously, the sword is not meant to say, oh, you reject Christ, now I'm going to use the sword to attack you. No, the sword was meant for protection against anything that would come after them. And that includes animals, thieves, just anything that could potentially happen to them. Jesus was trying to prepare his disciples for the time now that I am not going to be here on the earth, so I will not be able to protect you anymore. This is what Jesus is trying to say to his disciples, These 3 years that you've lived with me, you've been completely safe. There's been nothing that has ever happened to you. It's because of me and because of my Father in heaven. But now, since I'm going to the Father now for the rest of your lives, you have to depend on yourselves now for your protection and for your provisions. But don't worry, the Lord is still going to provide you the Holy Spirit and will still provide you the things you need through generous people. But there always is free will at play here. So, I just wanted to go ahead and I wanted to do this video for you guys real quick. The modern day version that you would probably say Luke 22 should be is that no longer is it called a sword. It is now called a gun. Because here's the reason why. Swords, bows and arrows, spears, lances were the original weapons of mass destruction for thousands of years. They were the original weapons of mass destruction. Now they are completely archaic. No one carries a sword, and I mean a sword, not a bayonet, not a knife. I'm saying a sword into battle. There's no more cavalry charges anymore. There hasn't been a cavalry charge on a battlefield when it came to America ever since World War I. So this is what I'm trying to tell everyone. This is why firearms are still applied even as a Christian. What we need to teach is that what you hold in your hand, the firearm that you hold in your hand, is not only a powerful tool, it is a powerful tool. It is neither good nor evil. It is amoral, just like very much money is. I can either use money to give to the church or to give to someone that needs a meal or give to someone else who is out there that needs it or pay for a full tank of gas. That would be a good thing. But I can also use the money to go and buy drugs, or I can go buy alcohol and get drunk, or I could go to a strip club. You getting the point. Money itself is a tool. It is a amoral thing. But what you do with it is whether it justifies as a good thing or a bad thing. It's the same as a firearm is. A firearm is an amoral thing. It can be used for good or it could be used for evil. It is all depending on who is behind the firearm. So this is what I'm trying to say, brothers and sisters out there. Please understand that if you get into the firearms hobby, it is not something that, you're supposed to sit here and act very macho with or something. It is a tool. And it can very easily backfire on you. Meaning that if you don't take proper care of it, it could have an issue and explode on you. But as long as you're very responsible with it, you'll do well with it. But the other thing that I want everyone to know, it is a powerful tool. It carries a massive responsibility with it. But it is our duty as Americans, but most of all as Christians, to also be ready for the things that are to come. Because God will protect us. God watches over us. Because we don't know what goes on in the spiritual realm of things. I can't see behind me of what is going on in the spiritual realm. For all I know, there could be like an army of angels and demons fighting in this room. And the angels are kicking the demons' butt so that the demons can't possess me or the demons can't influence me or something like that. He protects us from the things that are way more powerful. But we still need to protect ourselves, not only for us, but also for our friends and family. Because that's also one of the biggest calls of a husband is. A husband is 3 things. A husband is a leader first. He is a leader. Don't let anyone tell you any different. This is the thing that the church has really gotten away from. That men, when they are married, are the headship of the family. We are the leaders. We carry the responsibility on our shoulders for everything that goes on under our roof. We are the leaders. We are also the providers, which means that we are the ones who go out. Now, back in those days, it meant we went out into our own backyard and planted, plowed, and harvested to provide for our families. Or, just like Jesus and his father Joseph, they were carpenters. They provided a service, but they also did that so that they could make money to give back to their families. Provider. Third, we are the protector. Protector. That means it is our duty to be ready for the worst thing that could happen so that our family doesn't have to. Just like what Nick Freitas would say is that I am the shield for my family. I'm the guy that my kids don't ever have to worry about anything because they know dad is on duty, that he's always ready to go. And that's what I want to make men who watch these videos, I want to make them real men. Real men that love Christ first, love their wives, love their children, and become that proper leader, provider, protector. And also, it does also say in the Bible, husbands, lay down your life for your wife. It does say that, which means that if it's a split-second decision and a guy points a gun at our wives and we can't get to a gun, we can't do anything, and we've got that split-second decision to say, okay, I'm going to jump in front of that bullet to save my wife, that is what we are supposed to do. That is what we are called to do. So guys, I really want to thank you for hanging through this very long video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please hang in there. The weather's starting to light up a little bit, but there's a lot of things going on in my personal life that takes a lot of time away from making these videos. But eventually, if everything works out good, I'll get back with you and I will tell you guys exactly what's been going on. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have a blessed day and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for watching, and remember, shoot straight and shoot safe. Have a good day.